Welcome! Today, we're counting down our picks for the best MotoGP games that you should check out, and without further ado, let's dive right in. GP 500. Before I continue, I want to tell you that I will include various types of games for this list, from official MotoGP games to arcade racing games that have some sports bike racing elements in them. And you may or may not agree with me, but we play games to have fun, whether it's realistic or not. Anyway, this game was praised as the first proper MotoGP game when it was released back in 1999, and despite showing its age, it still offers a solid racing experience if you're willing to make it work. Moto Racer 4. As I mentioned before, I will also include arcade-style racing games, and this one is an example of that. And I know there's nothing MotoGP related in this one, but seriously, if you want to ride a sports bike and pull off some crazy stunts, this is it. And if you loved the original Moto Racer games, this is your spiritual revisit. It's fast, it's gorgeous, and it's low on setup time. And while it might not be a AAA title, it looks great and runs at breakneck speeds. Plus, it's a blast to play against a friend. MotoGP 08. Now, this is the first exclusive MotoGP game developed by a single publisher. Before that, there were usually two versions of MotoGP games developed by different publishers and typically sold on different platforms. You know, the whole PS2 versus Xbox thing. Developed by the well-known Milestone, I think this game still has a place in modern MotoGP gaming, especially if you're a seasoned gamer, if you catch my drift. And the good news is that this game is already considered abandonware. So if you want to relive that reckless era, maybe give this one a try. TrackDayR. If you love Assetto Corsa, you might want to check this one out. It aims to be a complete motorcycle simulator, allowing you to ride every type of motorbike. And not only that, the concept of being able to mod in any motorcycle and every track is also super appealing. The developers are active and consistently rolling out updates, and you can genuinely feel the improvements with each one. So if you're into the modding scene and love a good project, give this one a try. Just keep in mind it's a work in progress, but the potential is huge. SBK 22. Some of you are hardcore MotoGP fans, and some of you, well, are hardcore superbike fans. Well, if you're the latter, this one is for you, although it comes with a caveat. Essentially, this game is a reskinned MotoGP 22, but with superbikes instead of MotoGP bikes. Don't worry though, because while the visuals are very similar, the physics are quite different. Similar, but different. So if you think being a hardcore superbike fan justifies getting this game, keep an eye out for this one because it often goes on sale. Ride 2. This one is also developed by our beloved Milestone, but this time it's more of a bike simulation game, or simply put, it's the Forza Motorsport of bike racing games. Now, there are currently 5 games in this series, and this one is one of, if not the most fun out of all of them. And even though it's not the most realistic in terms of physics, that means it's accessible enough for newcomers. And obviously, the graphics aren't the best, but this one is responsible for making a name for the series. So, definitely check this one out. TT Isle of Man, Ride on the Edge 3. Now, this one is a hidden gem because not many people know this franchise exists. I mean, yeah, if you're into motorcycle games, chances are you're already familiar with it, but for the rest of you, I bet you didn't even know this series existed. Anyway, this series focuses on the infamous Isle of Man Tourist Trophy Racing event, one of the most dangerous racing events in the world. Scary, huh? And just so you know, the dev who worked on this is also the one behind Rims Racing, which we'll talk about later. V-Racer Hoverbike. Okay, this one is also another hidden gem, especially if you're into VR games. I mean, just see it for yourself, a futuristic combat racing MotoGP game in VR? And you know what? You must hold the motion controller as the handlebar and lean your body to the left or right if you want to turn in this game. So this is basically your old school motorcycle arcade machine, but this time it's in your mom's basement with better visuals. Seriously, how cool is that? So if you're into VR gaming, definitely get this one.
Enemy missiles engaged.
Valentino Rossi the game. This one is actually MotoGP 16 but with Rossi's name slapped on it since it features his endorsement and allows you to follow his career from the beginning. And just so you know, the Steam page says, this is the most complete MotoGP game ever. I mean, I can't argue with that, since in this game, you can ride not only MotoGP bikes, but also a rally car, a muscle car, and a dirt bike. It's weird, obviously, but if you're a fan of the Doctor himself, this one is definitely a must-have. TT Isle of Man, right on the edge too. Just like its sequel, this is a very niche racing game, and the main selling point is the Isle of Man course itself combined with the breakneck speed of high-powered bikes. However, I forgot to mention that this series leans more toward simulation and is definitely not arcade-like at all. In short, it's the kind of game where the smallest mistake will have you flying off your bike before you can blink. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it so intense. So, it's not just a game, it's like a workout for your nerves. GP Bikes. This game is one of the go-tos when it comes to simulating motorcycle physics on PC. The base content isn't the richest, but once you dive into modding and hit the track with other players, it's a whole new level of racing satisfaction. Sure, development can be slow with just one person handling a few complex simulations, but where it stands today is a monumental achievement. Overall, I wholeheartedly recommend this title. Once you get hooked, even if you initially think you might not like it, you'll find yourself coming back for just one more session time and time again. Rims Racing. Most gamers don't even know that this game exists, and that's a shame, but let me tell you, this is hands down the most realistic bike simulator you can get your hands on. I mean, we're talking about simulating oil viscosity changes with heat, how that impacts the bike's performance, and tracking wear and tear on over 500 mechanical parts. Not only that, every little component also matters, and if you ride hard, those parts are going to degrade in a way that feels super real. So don't expect it to hold your hand, it's for those who live and breathe bikes. MotoGP 23. Okay, I know there's a lot of hate toward this iteration, especially because it took a step back in features compared to the previous game. However, turning the bike does feel better than in 22. It's smoother, more responsive, and the same goes for braking. But for some reason, the bike has this weird obsession with wanting to stay upright all the time. It's hard to explain, but it's there. And yeah, the lack of historical bikes is also a letdown, obviously. However, the player base is still the biggest, for now at least. So there's that. Ride 3. I've got to say, this game isn't the best in the series, mostly because of its simcade physics, but hey, that's the thing. If you prefer a simcade experience, then this is actually the best ride game for you. And no, playing arcade racing games doesn't make you less manly or anything. Moving on, the graphics aren't the best since the newer games are better looking, but look on where the game really shines, which is the large selection of the bikes and tracks. So, if you want your ride experience a bit easier, this is the one. MotoGP 19. Now, this is the first MotoGP game that brings massive improvements, especially for the modern platforms. It's the game that made MotoGP games more popular and taken seriously by the community. The graphics are massively improved compared to 17, and yeah, 18 was good looking too, but it feels like a demo for the new graphics engine, while this one is a complete game overall. And out of the newer games, this one is the most beginner friendly, so keep that in mind. Oh, and by the way, it often goes on sale, so definitely consider it if you're a fan. The Crew Motorfest. Motorfest might not be a traditional motorcycle game, but it's great for just riding sport bikes and exploring the world, and if you're okay with that, then this is the game for you. And in this game, there's the Bike Lovers playlist, where you can hop on various bikes and partake in various types of racing events. And guess what? One of them is riding the KTM RC16 Red Bull on a road course. How cool is that? So, if you're into a fun arcade racing game that has some sports bike racing elements in it, this is the one. MotoGP 3 Ultimate Racing Technology. About 2 decades ago, there were 2 versions of MotoGP games based on the same season. In this case, this game, which was released on PC and the original Xbox, was a direct rival to MotoGP 4, which was released exclusively on the PS2. Back then, it was normal for devs and publishers to compete on the exact same thing since licenses weren't sold exclusively. Anyway, as you can see, the graphics aren't the best for modern audience, but back then, this was the shit. And it's an abandonware now, so you can grab this one at no cost. MotoGP 21. As you may already know, the MotoGP series is becoming more of a simulation, starting with MotoGP 19, and this game is no exception. With this one, the bike's weight feels spot on, like you really notice when you're fighting the thing, and the engine sounds will make your neighbors think you've got an actual MotoGP bike in your mom's basement. And not only that, after grinding away for hours, you do get the sense that the devs really put some love into this game. It's just too bad that it doesn't always love you back. MotoGP 07. Okay, this one was the last official MotoGP game that was developed in conjunction with its direct competitor, which was a PS2 game also titled MotoGP 07. I mean, 2 MotoGP games with the exact same name? Yeah, it was a wild era for sure. Anyway, most of you young kids probably won't want to play this one, because obviously none of you want a game that was released before you even gained consciousness. Nope, this one is here because some of you are old. Sorry, I mean seasoned gamers who experienced it back in its heyday. Ride 4. Now, out of all the ride games, this one is touted as the one with the most realistic physics. It's not the easiest, that's for sure, but if you crave a more punishing and demanding motorcycle racing game, then you might want to take a look at this one. And statistics show that 75% of players quit the game in under 4 hours of gameplay, never to return. So yeah, now you understand why this series never became mainstream. So, get this one if you think you have what it takes to play this game, or if you're a bit delusional. MotoGP 24. Now this one is the go-to MotoGP game for the mainstream audience right now because obviously it's the latest. And I gotta say, the new riding model is way more forgiving than in previous years. Last year, you made one little mistake and boom, you were flying off the track. But now, you can actually recover without feeling like the game's out to ruin your day. And obviously, if you love to be punished for making a mistake, even the tiniest mistake, this isn't for you. Go play Ride 4 or something. You'll be better off that way. MotoGP 22. This version of the official MotoGP games is one of the hardest and least forgiving. With this one, be ready to bring your A game because it takes some patience and a whole lot of persistence. But trust me, once you finally get the hang of it, the satisfaction is next level. And if you're new to the series, start in Moto 3, work your way through Moto 2. And then, when you're feeling confident, take the plunge into MotoGP. Yeah, it might sound a bit boring at first, but trust me, it's the best route for new players. MotoGP 20. Okay, now this is what I think is the best MotoGP game for the modern platforms. And yes, I want to clarify that this list is not in any particular order, so sorry for the confusion if you were wondering. Anyway, this one is praised by the community as the most realistic and unforgiving when it comes to vehicle and racing physics. In other words, this game is really cool if you are dedicated to it. Otherwise, don't bother getting it because you'll end up rage quitting. And yeah, this isn't the game to gift to the uninitiated for obvious reasons. Ride 5. This one isn't as realistic as the previous game, and if you love the previous game for its realistic approach, you might not like this one. However, since this one is better in almost every way and combines a more forgiving riding experience, I would say that if you're new to the series, this one is an obvious choice. And if you have a friend, a real one I might add, the split screen mode is back in this game, so you're good there. So if you're a hardcore player, get Ride 4, but if you have a social life, get this one. Grand Theft Auto 5 with mods. Okay, hear me out for a sec before you click away from this video. I'm not saying that GTA 5 is the best MotoGP game ever, like not a chance obviously. This list isn't in any particular order, remember? Anyway, I put this last because I think this game is so absurdly moddable that it can almost be any kind of game. I mean, imagine having the Nürburgring circuit in an action game. How ridiculous is that? But here we are, riding a MotoGP bike with shitty physics. And now, just imagine what GTA 6 could do in the future. So do you agree with our picks? Check out these other videos from us and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.